another edition of the audio project with Deena Tierney and another one of the athlete series, which is a new thing that we're doing now. And I'm very excited to have an amazing athlete with me in the studio today at our office. And we have Tom Hintnaus, who's here today. He's a two-time Olympian, not to mention many other things, which we'll get into later in the conversation. But you're just the epitome of what people think of as an athlete, and so I'm very happy to have you here today. Thank you for taking time.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks. So let's jump right in. I'd love for you to give maybe the short 411 on your career as an athlete. Maybe how did you get started in pole vaulting? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I grew up in an athletic family. You know, my dad, a soccer player, and my mom was a discus thrower, and they put us in a gymnastic class since I was 3 years old. And so my sister was a very good gymnast. She was a few years older than me, and so she made it to the 72 Olympics as an alternate, and she didn't get to compete. But you know, I had her to kind of like, you know, focus on and try to emulate as I went along. And so my dad said, yeah, you know, you don't want to be in gymnastics because they have people judging you and there's always politics going on. And you get, you know, it's not fun if, you know, you think you're better, you know, you do actually better than everybody else, but you only get third place or something. And so he said, do something without judges. And so and then he goes, you know, teams, you know, you have to rely on other teammates and all that. And because I played every sport. I started off in baseball and Little League and played soccer and I played football. You know, I played all these team sports and loved them. So I was like, okay. And then one day he took me to a big track meet in the Coliseum in Los Angeles. And I went there and Bob Seagren was pole vaulting. And I was like, whoa. And then he broke the world record. And everybody jumped up and just went, yes. And I go, that's for me. I love that because he's going, you know, he's bending this pole, he's flying through the air, you know, like a stuntman, and he lands in this big soft pit.
That's
and
awesome. I'm
like, that's me, Dad, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. And he just patted me on the head and goes, yeah, sure you are. So I from that point on, I was like this weird kid, you know. I was tunnel vision. That's all I wanted to do. You know, I grabbed anything I could find, you know, broomsticks and bamboo poles, and I pole vaulted in my backyard onto the ivy fence. And one day I made it over the ivy fence, landed on the ground on my back, knocked all the wind out of me, and I just laid there for 3 minutes. And then I realized I broke the world record. I went over the whole fence. And I just so that was, you know, so that's what drove me. And when I got to high school, I finally got to do the real thing. Got to use real poles. And got to use the real pit, a soft pit where I wasn't get the wind knocked out of me. And, you know, went from there, you know, and actually got a full ride scholarship. You know,
Wow.
I jumped high enough to get the interest of University of Oregon, which was a, you know, great school for track and field. They call Eugene the Track Town USA. And went up there and it couldn't have been better because at the end of my 4 years there, we had the Olympic trials. And that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to go there because they had the Olympic trials at that school. Wow. And so here I am, you know, in my home field at the Olympic trials. And that was my dream.
Wow.
And I was able to win.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes.
Yeah. A lot of yay moments.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, I was on the Olympic team, and then guess what happens? We have a boycott. In 1980, who was it? Jimmy Carter, yeah, it was the president, and he said, we're not going to the Olympics. And I went, what? You know, that was my life dream, was to make the Olympics, and we're not going. So I was like, okay. So then I have to start, you know, setting my focus on next Olympics and World Championships and things like that. But making the U.S. team is basically like the Olympics in itself because, you know, U.S. is so deep and rich in great talent that, you know, just to make the team, you have to be on top of your game.
How did you get, I mean, like, tell me about your training life, like, during that time.
Yeah, so you have to be, you know, like I said, tunnel vision, focused. You know, you can't party. You got to, you know, give up all that stuff and really just looking at your goal. And your goal basically is to be the best there is in the whole world. You have to be focused on being the best. That's what you got to do when
Yeah.
you're training, and that's what drives you when you're training. You're like going, oh, the Russians are training harder than I am. I better do this extra 400 meters today in training and do some more sit-ups before I leave and go home. And
Is that what's in your mind? Are you thinking about competition? Like, what are you thinking about when you're like, and especially as it's starting to get closer, as that date's getting there and where the trials are coming, trials are coming out or coming up.
Yeah, you're thinking about, that's all I thought about was putting in the extra work that it took. I'm going to do 2 more pull-ups today. I'm going to do another 10 sit-ups. I'm going to push myself. I'm going to do some more running and just keep training. And that's it. And working on your technique, watching films and, making sure that the technique is perfect. If you're not, especially for me, if my technique wasn't perfect, then I was way behind because I wasn't as fast as the other world-class pole vaulters in the world. I was much slower. So I had to have the perfect technique to even be in the same ballpark as them. So my technique was hugely important.
Okay, so lots of studying and analyzing your own self and then figuring out, okay, these are the things I've got to focus on. In your case, technique. Probably other people had different. Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Some people are more gifted than others, especially with the speed. Yeah. I wasn't gifted the speed, but I had good gymnastic ability, that I trained when I was with my parents and through gymnastics and I kind of was able to gain speed through my technique when I left the ground.
Yeah, it's cool to hear you talk about doing that extra sit-up or doing the extra, pull-ups and all the little things start to add up.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden it's hard for the competition or whoever to make, to get ahead, right? Because every little bit starts to count. I think it was Kobe Bryant that talks about how he gets up. He used to, get up at 4 and if I practice 2 hours every day or an extra hour a day or an extra 30 minutes a day more than everyone else, by year 2, year 3, I'm way ahead.
It adds up.
They can't catch up.
It adds up. And I've always said, it's like when you train, it's not like you just lose that training. Guys that have trained all their life, it's like putting money in the bank. So if I want to start training really hard right now, I'm ahead of most other people who haven't trained. It's like money's in the bank from all the years of training that I've put in.
Exactly. And that's something, I'm going to pause for a moment to talk about the translation to the business because I see it in the guys on our team. I see it with, young people who, I go to like different mentoring things for younger people or people who are early in their career, let's just call it. And, I tell them, put in the work, do it, because no one can take that from you. It's not about like, oh, my next job or my next thing or what, there's going to be this nirvana when I get another job. It's all with you, right? You put in the time, you put in the effort, and that's like you said, it's the reserve in the bank that just builds up, and now you're like, okay, cool, I know all these things.
Yep, and I was always told that, when you're young, you have one bullet in the chamber to do it, to win and to accomplish everything. You have that one bullet, and you better use it wisely.
That's a good one. Okay, so now let's get back to the story. So you were training and doing all that. You tried out, and then the boycott. So you missed the year, and then you went you were training. You continued your training.
Yeah. So then I continued training after that year. I graduated college, and I'm out of college now. In the United States, it's very difficult to continue training because the money, you don't have having money because we're all amateur athletes, especially back then. We couldn't be professional athletes to go to the Olympics. So we had to find a way to train and make money at the same time to continue our training because we're not at school anymore. So I got into modeling and commercials because I lived in LA, and someone came up to me and said, why don't we take some pictures and we can maybe try this thing out? And I, a lot of people come up to you and ask things, and they're usually kind of weird. But I actually did. I called him, and it's because it was summertime. I wasn't doing anything else, and he took a bunch of pictures, and we got like a really good agency in Los Angeles. And so I'm like, oh, great, and I'm like, what? I can make $100 an hour for this photo shoot. Perfect, now I can train. Yep. That was my goal, was to train really hard, but now I can pay for rent as well.
So to become a model, did you have to do training for that, or are you just a natural at that?
Yeah, I didn't do any training.
They're like, just stand there. You're good.
Yeah, somebody asked me though. They go, do you train and work out to be a good model, or do you train and work out to be a good athlete? And I'm like, well, yeah, an athlete,
Yeah.
But the modeling, that's a side, that's a side thing that just kind of happened
That's cool.
that you have the body because you're training.
Well, I have to say though, if there's a camera in front of me, I don't move the same way. Like I'm just like, that's why I was asking you if you had to be trained where they're like, move your arm up, like lift up your.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, I always had my own little things, like when you look in the camera, you gotta say, you're making love to the camera and stuff like that. But it kind of worked, but it was kind of weird.
You look at the picture later, you're like,
yeah.
Okay.
I know exactly what I was thinking about.
That's awesome. Well,
but yeah, there
cool.
were
So
a few things. So you had to learn how to walk. That was another thing. There were things that I learned along the way, I guess. When I was in those ramp, on the ramp, walking and doing the fashion shows. You have to learn, how to walk properly and where you're supposed to look, and you're not supposed to smile at times, and other times you're supposed to. So.
You're like, that's a piece of cake compared to the stuff that I had to train for.
Exactly. I found it really easy, but it was exciting, because
cool.
It was neat. Because oh my God, I have my picture in that magazine. It's pretty cool.
That's really good. That's really cool. So it gave you plenty of time to do your passion.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I probably should have moved to New York, if I wanted to really go for that business, and I could have at the time. But I wanted to stay and train, and I was in Los Angeles where the weather was better. Mm-hmm. So I had everything I needed in Los Angeles. I couldn't really train as well. I probably, I could have, looking back on it, I would have made a lot more money, but I didn't love living in New York. Not really a city guy.
Makes sense. Yeah. So then you continued with your training, and then, tell me about the first Olympics that you went to.
Okay, so I continued my training, and then, I figured out that I have dual citizenship. And I was kind of pissed at the U.S. for boycotting in the first place. So I'm like, why do I need to represent a country where they boycott me, in my life dream? So I'm like, I was born in Brazil.
Okay.
So to make the Brazilian team was, a lot easier than making the U.S. team, by a lot. And so I looked into that, and they invited me down there, and they were super nice to me, but I didn't understand them. You're speaking Portuguese, and they're going, you don't speak Portuguese? I go, no, I speak Czech. My parents spoke Czechoslovakian to me, but not Portuguese. And so I left when I was 2. And so I went down there, and they go, and then, I was competing, and I was winning, competitions down there. And then people in the stands were grumbling, going, he's not Brazilian, he can't speak Portuguese. And my godmother was in the stands, and she stands up, she goes, he was born right here in my hands. I know he's Brazilian. So it's pretty cool. So I ended up making the Brazilian team. I went to the World Championships with the Brazilian team in Finland. It was the first World Championships ever. And I ended up getting a good place. I got 5th place in the world. That was pretty good,
Awesome.
And then Olympics were after that, and they were in Los Angeles, in my hometown, in 1984, and it was a great competition. It was awesome. It was, I'll never trade that for anything. Is that experience?
Yeah. How intense was that? I don't know.
It was super intense.
Yeah.
I get down. It was just like. It's like you've always dreamed of being here. Now you're standing there, and you're doing it, and you're like, oh, wow, this is, and then you're looking in the stands, and your parents are like, number 78 row, way up there. You couldn't even see them. They're look like ants, and they're just like the stadium's full, and and you're just like, wow,
Do you
amazing.
zone out? At that moment when you're on it's your turn.
Yeah.
What's
well,
in your
there
mind?
was, I kind of had a little bit of bad luck. I broke my pole, and it shattered and broke, and that was the pole. That was, that's like, I don't know if you ever say Caddyshack, and when he's putting, and he has this putter, and it's called Woody, and it's Woody. That was my Woody, I was just, that was my pole, and I had to have that pole. So then it broke, and I was in the Olympics, and I had to figure out, what am I going to do? Go to a smaller pole, or go to, because you usually bring 5 poles with you. Do you go to your smaller pole and not go as high, because you don't have as much power, or you go a bigger pole? And I go, this is Olympics, I'm going for it, So
Nice.
It shot me up in the air really good, but I was coming down short a lot, so didn't get the place I wanted. I got 11th in the Olympics, but the experience and was incredible.
Yep. So is that what drove you to do it again, or how did
Yeah, I mean,
you're like, I need to do this. I need to keep going with it.
I need to keep going, and I did. And the next year, I got my best record ever. I almost got the world record, and that was, I got to track. That was the main reason why I started to do track and field, because everybody said this is going to be your ticket around the world. If you're good, you can go. You'll see the world, and that's what happened. It wasn't going for the money. I could have gone for the money with playing football or other sports, but I wanted to see the world and be on my own and have my own individual sport, right? And I did. I saw the world. I went to I even pole vault to the Great Wall of China, and I went all over Europe and every city in Europe, and I went to Japan. I went to Australia. Every state in the U.S. So that was my goal in that was to really see the world.
That's very cool. So you accomplished a lot. So even when you were training for the second time and you're traveling in the meantime with all this going on, did you continued with modeling too through all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I modeled in Japan, and I modeled in South Africa. I lived there for a long period, and I modeled in Europe, in Paris and Munich, and it was great because I could just take my book and go down to the agency, and they go, okay, we'll get you some go-sees and go around that city and do go-sees. So it kind of was a great, perfect marriage for my pole vaulting career. So
the LA scene got you you set up for that, up for success.
Exactly.
That's cool. When you reflect on the experience of being an Olympian, 2-time Olympian, like what do you think it takes if you tell someone like this is what it takes to get to that level, that athletic level? Like what do you think are some key things? I mean, you've talked on some of it, but I just want to see if you could summarize a few things.
You have to believe in yourself. And you have to have people around you that believe in you. My parents, were very, very positive. You have to set yourself up, like I said, with a tunnel vision and not let distractions come in and really, really focus and train hard. I wasn't set up. I wasn't the greatest athlete to be in that sport, but I was because of my heart.
Yeah, I like that.
It got me in.
I've heard you mentioned that work hard, do the extra things. And sometimes I hear people in business say, well, I outwork someone, I outwork them. And it's such a parallel to athletes as well. And I like how you keep talking about the tunnel vision. I want to talk on that. How do you, because I would say even in the workplace now, I mean, there's so many distractions. You got your email, you got your phone, you got your, somebody's paying you this and that. And there's times where I'm like, guys, you gotta focus on that outcome because we're right here, we're at that moment. How do you discipline yourself to be focused, through that time of training?
Yeah, I mean, it takes discipline. You're looking at your goal. You're looking at what you want out of this. What's your goal? I want to be the best in the world. Okay, if that's your goal, then you have to set yourself up with your training, and everything has to go for the steps to get to that goal.
Yeah. Do you visualize yourself blocking a distraction? Do you just don't even see it? If there's something distracting,
Yeah, sometimes you see it, but most of the time it's just blocked out. But sometimes you see it and you go, oh, I want to do that. I want to go to Mexico this weekend. All my friends are going down there. I want to do that. And sometimes I just said, I'm going to do it. But most of the time it was like, I gotta focus, and I got a big meet this next weekend. Yeah. I gotta get this meet done. And you think you miss out on everything, but you really don't. That was what you really wanted to do, and I guess that's what what I was there for. That was my passion, my love was to do it and be the best that I can be.
Yep. Did you have a moment or moments maybe where you were like, I don't know if I can keep going? I don't know. A moment of self-doubt, and how do you get, you push yourself to that next level? How do you see that? There
was a time, where I was trying to get back, and I had to play a lot of Rocky, the music, and I had to have the headphones on, and I had to just really, really push myself because it was very difficult. To be an athlete like that, and then especially the pole vault, I don't know if can you picture yourself running down as fast as you can with this massive pole in your hand and then just shoving it in a hole and then trying to bend it and then trying to get up in the air with it and without killing yourself, right? Well, a lot of time you get shot out backwards and you land on the ground, and sometimes you land on your head, and sometimes you if you're lucky you land on your feet, and it takes a lot of courage, and you have to do that every day, and there's days where you don't feel good. And you just kind of go, oh, and then that's you start running through, and these mental games start happening to you, and that's the difficult part of the whole thing. So you have to there was a time when I missed the whole pit. I went, I was really high in the air, and I went to the right side, and I just went down and landed on the ground and bounced on a cement pad and knocked me out, and my back swelled up, and we had big meets coming up against UCLA. I was at Oregon, I had UCLA coming up, and SC, and that was like the next week, and I was knocked out and I was in the hospital, and then you got to come back from that, and you run, your back hurts, and you just got knocked out. You don't know why you went off to the side that far, and there's so many. So you have to really block things out in that case, and just really focus, and that tunnel vision thing.
I like the tunnel vision comment. That's so huge. How do you feel like the experiences that you had as an athlete and all the discipline and the work and the tunnel vision, all the things that you talked about, have carried you forward into your life today? And tell us about what you're doing now too, because I'd love to.
So lots of times I do that. I say, I got to give it an Olympic effort. If I give this an Olympic effort, I will do really well at this new job that I'm doing, or the Zumba that we do every day, and I give it that Olympic effort, then it all kind of falls in place, and because you get that mindset of being the best that you can be.
I love that. That's great. Olympic effort, that's going to be a new a new quote or mantra around here. And I guess as we kind of transition, I wanted to know about what you're up to today. You're doing some coaching. Yeah. How's that going?
It's going great. I've been at the school here, Punahou, for 10 years now. And then before that, I coached at Kamehameha. And then before that, I was at Kaiser coaching my own daughter. Nice. So a lot of years of coaching. And, I've had great coaches in my career. And they were there they didn't get paid anything. They were just there because they loved it and they wanted to pay it forward. And that's the reason why I want to be coaching, there is, and give these kids my knowledge of the sport.
How do you think coaching is different from being an athlete, the actual star athlete? Now you're the coach.
Yeah.
How is it different?
It's a lot easier.
Well, the reason I bring it up is I actually was also in coaching conversations. I read this book recently, and they were talking about how some athletes, not all, don't make great coaches, and it's a different way of approaching it, and so that's why I wanted to get your 2 cents on that.
Well, because a lot of athletes, they do it without really knowing what they're doing. That some athletes really are inquisitive, and they figure out what makes it work and what doesn't make it work. And I was kind of like in between. I didn't know what I was doing, but then I also have a mechanical mind, and I can picture things. So now when I do it, I did that, automatically, okay, I got to try to teach them how to do it now. And so that's kind of been a juggle in my head, was figuring out, how come it's not coming to you naturally? And, I guess
you're like, come on.
What can we do? What kind of drill can we set up to get you to try to do this one?
Wow, that's cool. As a coach now, what are some of your favorite, you talked a little bit, but what's your favorite aspect of coaching? That role? Yeah.
Coaching. Well, the best thing about coaching is you have usually about 5 girls and 5 boys, and one of them will do really well. so you so other ones you go, okay, it was good meet, but next week you'll do better. But you always have a victory. When I pole vaulted, I was, it was the worst lows, and the worst, the best highs, right? But you didn't have anything in between. When you're coaching, you got a little bit more. It's more in between, and you don't have these huge highs and lows like you do when you're an athlete.
That makes sense. Yeah. Sometimes with the team, when there's the setback, I always tell them to, you had a bad day, but it's like sometimes you have to take a couple steps back, and then all of a sudden you can start to move a little faster forward. So
exactly. That's particularly in the pole vault.
Yeah, I believe it. All right, cool. Well, so in closing, I think about our audience, and we have business leaders. We have everything from business leaders, entrepreneurs, people looking at career development, probably some athletes, I'm imagining, in the audience. And we're looking for I know even for myself, reading books, doing different things to help tone those business muscles, if you will. Mm-hmm. So what is a lesson that you would say from your career as an Olympian, as an athlete, that's taught you that you think could benefit someone like that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, no matter what you're doing, if you're a trash collector or whatever you're doing, be the best that there is at what you're doing. I mean, if you're doing a job here and it seems mundane, it's just like the athlete that's putting in the extra two pull-ups, or you do it every day. That adds up to a tremendous amount of extra, mm-hmm. right? So if you just do the little bit of extra, and it's not a ton, but it adds up, and
mm-hmm.
and that's what I would say is do that little extra, no matter what you do, and then go for the top, go for the best in the world, mm-hmm. So that someone looks at you, and says, "Oh, there goes Tom Hintnaus. He's the best there ever was." And
mm-hmm.
that's your goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why strive for this when you can strive
when
for
you
that?
can be the
yeah,
best.
Exactly.
And then that's if you do that, then everything will be really good.
Mm-hmm.
If you fall, in the mid category, mm-hmm. especially at work, if you can, strive for that and get there,
mm-hmm.
I mean, people are going to love you at work.
Love that. Well, I'm very inspired, so thank you. And I
welcome.
Love your story.
Yes.
Tom, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I feel like I should clap it up for this episode because I've never had an Olympian in my office. This is amazing. So thank you, Tom.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. It's really nice being here and talking with you.
Yeah, thank you.